Hello, Year 2. It's Thursday, so it must be time for art. Now, we know art can come in many forms, don't we? It may be something that's been drawn or painted, sculpted, crafted, but it could also be created on a computer. And this is what we're going to be looking at this term, a slightly different way of making art. So have a look at this picture created by the famous artist David Hockney. How do you think he may have gone about creating that picture? Because at a first glance, to me, it looks a little bit like he's used some paint. But actually, when you look a bit closer, you can see how perhaps he could have made it on a computer. And in fact, he made this on an iPad, whereas he'd always in the past created things using paint. More recently, he started using his iPad to create artworks, and very effective they are, I think. So the first session is going to be about pointillism, and we're going to be talking about pixels as well. So your aim today is to create some computer art. You're going to use a computer software program, whichever one you have on your iPad or computer. If you don't have the option, then you can always do this by hand on paper. And you're going to be changing the colour and size of the dots in order to create your picture. So what is pointillism? Pointillism is a type of painting that makes a picture using lots of colourful dots. The first artists who started to use it, this was in the 1880s, so a little while ago. Close up, it can look rather messy, and it can be quite difficult to tell what the picture is actually of. But when you stand back and look at it from a distance, your mind blends different coloured dots all together, and it forms a clear picture. Pretty clever, huh? In fact, modern day televisions and screens and newspapers use the same technique to make all the different colours that you see on them. If you were to get a magnifying glass and look very closely at newspaper or even at a screen, you would see that in fact it's made up of tiny dots. If you looked at them close to, it wouldn't make any sense to your brain, but from a distance it creates a picture. So Georges Seurat, he was a French painter who lived between 1859 and 1891. He went to some different art schools where he learnt to paint in a traditional manner. And he tried lots of different styles of painting, but some people didn't like it. And then he spent 2 whole years producing his famous pointillist painting, which is called A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Le Grand Jatte. And we're going to click on here and have a look at that painting. You might recognise it because it is very famous. I think it's a lovely painting, this one. All these people relaxing by the river in the sunshine. Got the ladies with their parasols up, the dogs sniffing around, boats out on the water. A really lovely scene, isn't it? Another building you might recognise, the Eiffel Tower, another of his paintings. And again, if you just put your eyes really close and have a look, it might just look like a series of dots, but when you stand back, you can see exactly what it is, can't you? So here's some close-up images of some pointillist pictures. Can you work out what the image is of? Could quite literally be anything. Let's have a look. Oh, it's the dog's bottom from the painting. Let's have a look at another one. Got all these little dots, and notice how they've overlapped them. We've got some yellows, some oranges and purples, and all around the edges they've been overlapped. And this one is from an apple. How about this one? It's from the bow of the boat. So I'd imagine most of you have created some sort of art using a computer before. I wonder which program or app you've used and why you chose that particular one. If you have a look at these two, Microsoft Word, Microsoft Paint, which of those would be better for creating art? Exactly right. It would be the Paint one, wouldn't it? Why is that better? It's got the whole toolbox, hasn't it, that we can use, all the different strokes and colours and sizes to create the effect that we want. Whereas if we try to do it on a Word document, it wouldn't be half as successful. Now, you can use whichever paint program you have on your computer or iPad or laptop, whatever you're using, for example, Dodlebuddy or PixArt. And remember what I said, if you don't have access to this, don't worry. You will be able to do it on paper instead, if you like, with Paint. So which tools are you going to use? Yours might look slightly different than this, but most of the apps will have the same sort of features. So this is what we call the toolbar, isn't it? It shows you what tool you're using and any important information like size or colour. And for this lesson, you'll need to keep the brushes selection the same, as it's the only one that allows you to make dots. You'll need to select the right colour that you're going to use for colour 1. And colour 2 could stay white, otherwise you'll get in a bit of a pickle. So you just want to change that colour 1. That's the one that you'll be working with each time. So you might want to start with greens and then change to blues, whatever you like. And you'll also need to select the size of the dot you're going to use. Now, don't choose a really tiny one, because you might be here till Christmas creating your pointillist picture. But equally, don't use a huge blob, because you won't create the effect we're looking for. So use your common sense. Use a fairly small size dot that is going to not take you forever, but is going to create the effect that we're looking for. So I will attach the file that has these 3 options of pictures to have a go at. Now, obviously, if you want to do a different one, that's absolutely fine. The easiest one on here is the apple, but you might want to have a go at the church, or even the little section from the painting we looked at by Georges Seurat. What I suggest you might want to do is draw an outline of the shapes, just the basic shapes in the picture, with pencil first. So you've got a guideline. Think about the colours you're going to use. Remember that Seurat used lots of colours. He didn't just use yellow and green for his apple. If you look at this picture of the apple, you've got purples, oranges, yellows, greens, a bit of red. So you can overlap them to create different shades and tones. Are you just making dots? Make sure that you click for each one, and then you won't end up with lines. We don't want lines, do we? We just want little dots. So change the size of the dot as necessary. Take your time and make sure your work is completely dotty. I've added this link on to a website where you can colour in a variety of famous paintings online, or print them off and have a go at doing it with paint. So if I click on there and quickly show you, it takes you through to what's called scrap colouring, and you'll recognise this, no doubt. If I click on there, it gives me the option to create patterns and colours, and I can do my own version of famous painting. Okay, and there's a few other ones down here you might want to try as well. Mondrian, that could be a good one. Okay, let's go back. So we're creating computer art, but obviously, like I said, if you don't have a computer program for this, then I would love to see you have a go at creating some on paper. A good tip for this is to use a cotton bud, something you'd use to clean out your ears, but it's got the right size sort of tip, and you can dip that in the paint, or even a pencil that has a rubber on the end. very small round rubber. That also works quite well. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing some of your pointillism creations.